to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 33. I'm Denise.
I'm Jess.
Yay! Episode 33.
33. I can't believe we've actually, done this for this long now.
We've actually done really well. This is longer than I thought we would keep this up, to be honest.
Hey, we're creeping up on a year here.
I know. It'll be a year. We started in September. Yeah.
Because we started right around my birthday.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're getting there. That's really kind of crazy, actually, when you think about it that way.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So, just a couple of announcements here. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to Jess's heart. And we're going to talk about the books that have been sitting on our to-be-read list, or book pile, or bookshelf for the longest time, and we just haven't gotten around to reading them yet. And we may not have reasons as to why they haven't been read, but we do have reasons why we got them in the first place. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why we want to read them and what made us get them and that sort of thing. Next week, we will be doing the Tavern Book Club discussion, which is on A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So
Which I need to start rereading.
Yeah, you do. It's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, actually.
It's a really long book.
Yeah.
And consider that the first time I read it straight through.
Yeah. So if you haven't started reading it yet, and you want to join us with that discussion, go ahead and get started, because we are going to have an episode devoted solely to that, and then we'll also have the discussion post over at the Malorian Tavern website. And that'll be next week. The discussion post on the Tavern will actually go up on the 15th, so that'll actually be up first. The podcast won't be up until, what will that be, the 19th, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So look for that. And then the other announcement is the episode that would come out over Memorial Day weekend. We will not have an episode that week.
Yeah, we're taking a vacation.
We haven't taken a break in a while, so...
She's literally taking a vacation.
I'm actually taking a vacation. I am going on a trip that weekend to New York City, and really excited. I haven't been in a while. I love New York so much, and anybody who knows me knows how much, and
Yes,
I know. I can't help it. Everything that I love is in New York. You've got literature, you've got theater, you've got all kinds of stuff. And so I love going there, and I try and go at least once a year, sometimes a couple times if I can afford it, because it is not the cheapest place to go visit. But this time, my daughter and my mom and my aunt are all coming with me, so it's going to be a girls' weekend over the holiday weekend, and there's a bunch of things that we're going to do, but I'm really excited because we're going to a concert up there of somebody who, they don't come to the United States very often, so we went to see him last time he was here, and he's coming back, so we're like, oh god, we have to go see him, and it was just perfect over the holiday weekend, so I don't even have to take time off work, so I'm excited.
You gotta love it when things just kind of fall together.
It just worked, and it was funny because my aunt was asking me if we could do, the next time we went up there, that if she could come too, because she really wanted to visit New York, but she was kind of nervous about doing it herself because she didn't really know much about it. She just wanted to see it. And so that kind of worked out because her and my uncle are coming up to visit us for a little while, and then she's just going to stay on and go with us up to the city. So I'm really excited. We're going to do a lot of book stuff. We're going to go to the big Barnes & Noble. We're going to go to the Strand. So that's going to be fun. And I'm really looking forward to, listening to Ramin Karimloo in concert again, because I kind of love him. So, well, I can't help it. He's kind of awesome. Anyway, he's a really big deal in West End theater. It's in London, and he hasn't done as much over here. But if anybody's seen, he was the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera 25th anniversary concert. And that's on DVD, so you can go and hear him. It's also all over YouTube, so he's pretty amazing. And also a really nice guy. So on top of everything else, he's also a sweetheart. So I'm excited to go see him, in case you haven't been able to tell. Just a little excited.
I think we can tell.
I'm not very transparent on that. Anyway, So before we get started talking about our main discussion tonight, let's go ahead and talk about what we're currently reading.
I actually finished a book.
Yay!
After we went to Jacksonville, and I saw Stone Sour and fell maddeningly in love with the lead singer, I found out he's written a book. Actually, he's written 2 books. The other one is not out yet. It comes out this fall. But I tracked down his first book, which is called 7 Deadly Sins. And basically what it is it's his take on why the 7 deadly sins are neither deadly nor sins, and 7 things that he thinks should be the 7 deadly sins.
Huh. That's interesting.
And he makes some really good points, and he has such a way with words. And some things I cannot repeat on this podcast. Because, I mean, come on. He's the lead singer of a rock band and a metal band. He's kind of vulgar at times.
Yeah,
Let's just say that Corey Taylor has led a very interesting life. And we're going to let it go at that.
Okay.
But he makes some very valid points. And for, anyone over the age of 16, I would recommend the book.
Just don't be sensitive.
No, if you're easily offended, stay far, far, far away from that book. But if you're not, then it's definitely worth reading. Because, I mean, he makes some valid points about how things like greed and envy and sloth, he's like, how exactly are these deadly? And he's like, and really, if you think about it, of all of the 7 deadly sins, he's like, none of them are really sins. They're all just a part of being human. If you want 7 deadly sins, we need to count things like murder and child abuse and things like that.
Okay.
And he makes a good point.
Right.
Because, I mean, he's like, what we call the 7 deadly sins are emotions and things that could lead to violence or crime, but they themselves are not deadly or, anything wrong with them. They're just a part of being human.
Right.
He's like, without envy, he's like, actually, he explains why envy is kind of at the root of all the others, because, greed is when you want everything, but that's a kind of envy because, you see people who have everything and you want that. It's just really, really fascinating, and he's kind of warped, but it's amusing.
Hey, the best people are.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. And then I picked up Magician's Gambit. I'm going to try to finish the Bulgariad now before I start anything else other than A Discovery of Witches, because I'll probably go ahead and start that.
Okay.
But I'm going to try to finish some of this stuff. I looked on Goodreads. I have 7 books listed that I'm currently reading, and that's ridiculous even for me.
That is a lot.
I'm good with like 3 or 4, but 7, that's a lot even for me.
Yeah, that is a lot.
So I've got to work on that.
Okay.
And I need to stop rereading things. And, today's topic, the stuff that has been on my shelves forever, and I need to read it.
Right. Well, let's see. Currently I'm reading A Discovery of Witches. And I have kind of mixed feelings about it, but I'm not really going to go into that since we're going to talk about it, the entire show next week. Mostly I'm liking it. The main complaint I have so far is that in some places it's really slow.
Yeah, it has those moments.
Really slow. But we'll talk more about that next week. The other book I'm reading, I had just gotten finished with the Newsflesh series, which was that zombie series by Mira Grant, and read the Bulgariad, which, although it's not really heavy, it's still pretty dramatic, and that big long series, it takes a long time to get through. So I needed something that was just kind of light and easy, and so I finally started reading Lola and the Boy Next Door by Stephanie Perkins, which is one of the ones that I got when I went to Raleigh to the book signing. Because Stephanie Perkins was the other author that was there with Maureen Johnson. So this is my signed copy, and it's so cool. It's signed in like a fuchsia Sharpie. Well, that's okay. My Maureen Johnson book is signed in a gold Sharpie because she stole it from somebody.
Oh.
Well, somebody let her borrow it, and she said, this is so cool, and it matches my dress, because she was kind of wearing this gold dress, and she's like, so I'm not giving it back. And the girl was like, that's fine, you can have it.
Oh, that's okay. I gave a silver Sharpie to a member of Lynham one time, but to be fair, that was because he shoved it up his nose.
Well, okay. I guess you don't want it back after that.
I was like, you know what? Keep it. But then I have like 5 of his drumsticks that have been up his nose, so there you go.
Okay.
I don't know. He likes to stick things up his nose.
I'm not even going to go there.
I stopped questioning it. I have so many pictures from Wyndham shows of him with a drumstick shoved up his nose.
Oh, gosh. But anyway, so Lola and the Boy Next Door. It's a really cute story. It's young adult, mainstream, just regular fiction, not fantasy or anything like that. And they got this girl named Lola growing up in San Francisco with her 2 dads, and she's in love with this older, like she's a 17 and she's got a 22-year-old boyfriend, which her parents are not real thrilled about.
Well, I can see why not.
And he's kind of the bad boy in a rock band sort of character, and then this family moves in next door, and they had lived there before, but they travel a lot because there's 2 twins that are the kids of that family, and one of them is a competitive figure skater, like getting ready to go to the Olympics, like that competitive. And
Wow.
so that's the girl, and then the other twin's a boy, and I love their names. They're the girl's name is Calliope, and the boy's name is Cricket. Yes, like the bug. I don't know where they came up with it, but it fits him for some reason. I don't know. And so apparently Lola and Cricket kind of had a thing, but then they had this big falling out, and now he's back, and she still kind of has feelings for him, and he's kind of the perfect boy, like her parents like him, and he's really sweet and really nice, and he's also gotten a lot better looking since he's been gone, so that helps too. So she's kind of got this conundrum. She's trying to be friends with Cricket, sort of, because she doesn't really want to lose him, but she still really likes, oh gosh, what's his name? Max, I think, is the musician guy. But it's really sweet, and she loves making clothes, and she never wears the same outfit twice. She will like tear it up and put it back together again, and basically says they're not outfits, they are costumes. So, and that includes like wearing wigs too. So she's got just this really crazy little personality, and
She sounds kind of out there.
she is, but in a good way. And it's really cute and fun, and that's one of the things I like about Stephanie's books, because I also read her other book, Anna and the French Kiss, which is also really cute and sweet and funny. So they're perfect if you don't want something that's really like heavy battle to save the universe kind of stuff. It's just something that's kind of lighthearted and fun, and right now I kind of need that. So I'm really enjoying it so far, and about halfway through.
Maybe one day I'll actually finish some of this stuff and start on my to-be-read pile. I mean, it's May, and I have made no progress on my reading goals. None.
I've made some, but just because I've been reading a lot, and most of that has to do with the podcast because of the number of books I've had to read this year because of the podcast. Yes, I'm talking about all the Chloe Neal books and all the David Eddings books, and
the Mythos Academy books.
oh yeah, those are on here too. Wait, was that? No, that was the end of last year.
Was it?
Yeah, they're not on my list for this year. But that helped me with last year. So, because my main goal for this year was just a numbers thing. I wasn't trying to read any specific book or any kind of book. It was mostly just trying to read, I think it was 70.
Well, see, I've made no progress. I think I've read 14 books, maybe 15. I'm way behind. I really get. If I would just sit down and read, it would not take me that long to get at least caught up to where I should be.
Right.
But I have things like the internet, and I have like 86 hours of stuff on my DVR that I really need to go through.
Well, part of what's helped me is that I do a lot of reading on my lunch break at work, because going out anywhere is a pain in the butt. So I just stay in the office and I bring something. And I mean, we have the internet, obviously, but it has so many security blockers that we can't get on anything, really. So it's not like I can go on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that while I'm at work, even if I'm on my lunch break and clocked out. They don't care. You just can't access anything on the company computer. So I've been doing a lot of reading there, and that's like an hour a day. So that's helped a little bit for me. And then, like I said, all the Chloe Neal books and all the David Eddings books. You put that together, that's, what, 12 books right there?
Yeah, that's a lot of books.
Yeah. So, anyway, so let's just segue into our topic here. Do you want to start with a book that you need to start reading, since you have so many?
There are so many to choose from. The ones that are the worst offenders, I guess, that I've been holding on to for the longest is probably the Xanth novels by Piers Anthony. Now, this is one of those series that has, the number of books in this series is in the double digits. Piers Anthony is like 3 days older than dirt, and he's still writing books. I have been slowly collecting these books, and I have the biggest part of them. And I have probably at least 15 of them before I hit a gap of one that I don't have. So there's really no reason I can't start reading them.
Right.
But they're sitting there staring at me, and I haven't picked them up. I mean, I read the first one a long, long, long time ago, but it's been so long that it really doesn't even count anymore because I don't really remember anything about it.
Right.
But apparently, whenever I buy books or acquire books in any way, it's like they have to sit on my shelf and acclimate to their environment before I can read them. But I mean, I reckon they have to make themselves at home first. I don't really know what it is, but I will buy things and I will be really excited about them. It's like, oh, this looks really, really good. Like, I did that with Beautiful Creatures. It sat on my bookshelf for at least a year. Before I picked it up and read it. The same with Graceling, which after I read, I was in love with. It was really, really good.
Right.
And it's just like, I don't know. They just have to sit there. I have to sit there and look at them for a while. My excuse for the Piers Anthony stuff, which has been on my shelf for at least 7 years, if not longer, I don't know. I don't have an excuse for that one.
Oh, that's okay. Since you mentioned Graceling, which we did talk about on the podcast, one of the ones that's sitting on my bookshelf and has been for a while now that I haven't read yet is Fire by Kristen Kishore.
See, that was on my shelf too.
Which is, well, it's not really the sequel. It's actually kind of a prequel, sort of, to Graceling.
Yeah.
I believe. And this was on my list. I think we had talked about a while back about the series that we start but never finish. And so every time I start a new series, I'm writing it down so that I can remember to finish it. And I was actually really glad because I did finally finish the Abortion series by Garth Nix, and that was one of the ones that was on my list to try and finish it. So I was like, yay, I actually completed something.
I can mark it off.
Yay! I love having lists and being able to check things off. That's like my thing. I have so many notebooks and things. I have various lists, and whenever I can cross it off and say I have done that, I love that. I don't know.
Tell me, have you ever heard of obsessive compulsive personality disorder?
What's that?
Well, one of the biggest symptoms is making lists of everything.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea.
It makes you feel any better. I do the same thing.
I know, that's why we're friends. We understand.
I must have a list. Like, look, I have, over 600 books. I have, well, bits and pieces. I haven't actually sat down and done an updated list lately, but I have to have a list of all of them. I have about 400 movies. I have to have a list of all of them. I don't know why, because I can look at my shelf and there they are, but I have to have a list.
But I don't have any real excuse for Fire, because with some of these, I've had them, they've been library books, and I've had to try and rush through them, or I've had to try and check them out again. But this one, I actually own a copy and it was the weirdest thing because we had just finished Graceling like maybe a few weeks prior. And I was in this store in our town. I don't know if they're a regional thing or if it's like all over the country. I don't know, but it's called Ollie's.
Never heard of it.
And it's basically, they do a lot of like your closeout merchandise. They'll buy up a whole bunch of stuff that's left over from other stores. And they have a really interesting book section. But what's funny is since it's all closeout merchandise, they may have like 7 copies of book 3 in a series, and that's the only one.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it changes all the time. So it's not like a regular bookstore where you have, a definite inventory. It's always different. And I mean, some things, especially things that are really popular, they'll usually have like most of the Mortal Instruments series. They always have tons of copies of those, just because there are tons of copies of those. But I had just finished talking about Graceling and putting it on my list of series that I needed to finish, and just walking through. I'm not even really looking for anything, and I wasn't even in the fantasy section where those types of books are. It's not really a section, but they're sort of lumped together. Yeah. But it was the section that was on biographies and like athletes. I don't know. It was weird. And I walked by there, and all of a sudden, this book catches my eye, and it's Fire by Kristen Kishore. Completely in the wrong place. I was like, ooh, okay. I wasn't even looking for that. And then I flipped it over to look at the price tag, and it was $1.99.
Yes, please.
My book.
Somebody must have picked it up and laid it down in the wrong place.
I'm sure, but it was just the weirdest thing, because I wasn't even really looking at the books. I was waiting for my mom, I think, because she was there with me, and just kind of wandering, and my mind was elsewhere. I wasn't even really paying attention. It just like all of a sudden it caught my eye. I was like, ooh, that's a pretty cover, because it is really pretty. It's a really pretty red and has gold letters and this really gorgeous bow and arrow on the front. And so I just looked at, ooh, that's really pretty. Ooh, something shiny. And all of a sudden I looked at like, wait a second, I know that book. And I've wanted to read that book. Oh, it's $2? Mine. So eventually it's going to get read. In fact, I think it's the next one on the stack here. So maybe once I finish Lola, I'll start reading that one. Since I'm not as concerned with it since it is a prequel. And I think on Kristen Kishore's website, she said that the way that she's writing these books, they're not really a series. They're just a whole bunch of books that take place kind of in the same universe.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to read them in order. They're not a continuation, although some of them do have similar characters, because the other one in the series is Bitterblue, and we already met Bitterblue in Graceling, so she's going to come back, but I think it's when she's an adult as opposed to when she was a child in the other book. So at least I don't have to reread anything to read this next book in the series, which was a problem for when I was reading of Shadowborn, and I had to read the first 3 books so I could remember what had freaked me out so bad that I had to read book 4.
Yeah.
That's my next one, I think, that's going to be read once I catch up on everything else.
This is not quite as bad. I've been a Terry Brooks fan for a long time. I've read most of his Shannara book. And a few years ago, he wrote a new series that he has another series called The Word and Void. It was a trilogy. And it was set in a time more like the time we live in now. And what had happened was there was, in the Shannara books that there was some sort of cataclysmic event that basically sent everything back into the Dark Ages and removed all technology from the world. Like, the world was devoid of technology and magic was turned loose and it was wild. And for years people had been saying that the world of his Word and Void series was the precursor to Shannara. And finally, a few years ago, he wrote a series that bridged the two together. and finally, said for sure that is, that it was, that they were tied together. I've never read the Word and Void books. I tried to read the first one. I didn't even finish it. I couldn't make it through it. But he's also written some new Shannara books that I have, and I just haven't gotten around to reading them yet. And I've kind of wanted to read the Word and Void books before I read the Genesis of Shannara. But then I thought, well, maybe if I read the Genesis of Shannara, it'll make me want to read the Word and Void books.
Right, maybe there'll be something to connect them more, something like that.
Yeah, that'll, make me think, okay, I really need the rest of this story now. But I haven't ever gotten around to it. I think there's like 6 of these books now that I need to read, and I have 4 of them.
Well, that's not too bad.
Well, not too bad, but still, the ones I have been sitting on my shelves for quite a while now. They're still acclimating.
Yeah, they have to breathe. It's like a fine wine.
For a while, they were acclimating in my bedroom floor till I got my new bookshelf. So at least they have a home now.
That's good. That's something.
It's something.
They've moved up in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, the next book on my to-be-read stack is one that I know you've read, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern.
Yes, I have read that.
And, see, here's the thing. I first heard about this book right when it first came out, because I am a big fan of NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
And for anybody who doesn't know what NaNoWriMo is, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. And it happens every November. You get people all over the world who sign up to do the challenge. And the challenge is to try and write 50,000 words in the month of November. So 30 days. I have never been able to do this.
I tried a couple times.
It's hard. It's a lot of words per day, and if you get behind, it is really difficult to get caught back up. So most people who have done NaNoWriMo or have followed it at all, and it is a pretty big deal during the month of November if you know anybody who likes to write, because they'll talk about it. Even if they don't do it, they'll talk about it. But it was a really big deal when this book came out, because Erin Morgenstern was very, very upfront and supportive, saying that she wrote this book for her NaNoWriMo project challenge thing.
Wow.
And now, obviously, she had to go back and edit it and all that stuff. It wasn't only written in 30 days and then published, but
well, no.
Nothing ever happens that easily. But so on top of it being just a new novel, a debut author, it was like a big deal in the NaNoWriMo community. So I had wanted to read it from the very moment I heard about it. And when did this come out? It came out in 2011. It's now 2013, and I still haven't read it. And last year at Christmas, I made a list of all of the books that I wanted, and because it's just easier that way. My family does not know what I have, what I don't have, so I just made them a list and said, here, if you buy anything on this list, I'll be happy. And this was on the list, and they bought it for me. So I didn't even have to go hunt it down. It is here. I got it, and it was a present even. But I haven't read it yet.
Well, see, I wanted to read it for a different reason. There's a company that makes perfume oils called Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. And if you read the thanks in the back of the book, I believe, she mentions Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. And we have a Goodreads group. And that was one of the books we read on there. And it was suggested because a lot of the inspiration came from some of the Black Phoenix scents. And it's so funny because the scent collection that she got the ideas from was the Carnival Noir, the original Carnival Noir, which is about the time that I discovered Black Phoenix and started ordering perfume oils from them. And I had some of the scents, and it's so funny when I was reading the book and she's talking about these descriptions of Inside the Circus, and I'm just like, that is such and such scent. I had that one. So it was really neat. That's why I read it, and it was so awesome because we were doing it on the book club, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And one of the awesome people was like, "Oh, I have an extra copy. Let me mail it to you."
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was awesomely given to me as well, and it was so good, so good. So I think you'll really, really enjoy that one. You wouldn't know that it was a NaNoWriMo novel.
Well, I mean, a lot of books that are written during NaNoWriMo, it's just a challenge to get you writing. And it's also kind of permission to let yourself write badly
Yeah.
because you're strictly going for quantity. You don't care if it's good or bad. In most cases, it's really, really bad. And it's just a means to kind of light a fire under your butt and get something. Of course, it's not going to be good if you're trying to write that much that fast, but at least it's words on a page, and then you can take it and you can edit it and have something to work with as opposed to just having ideas floating around in your head. So that's the whole point. But like I said, when I first heard about it, I was like, that's so cool. It's a NaNoWriMo person, and it's somebody who's really excited about the whole idea of NaNoWriMo, and I should support this person because she just sounds really awesome. It's funny how many books I read not because I heard about the book itself and I thought that the story was interesting, but because I like the author as a person and therefore I have to read their stuff. I don't know. That's just, maybe that's weird. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Well, we all read things for different reasons.
Well, there was one book that I read, and I can't really talk about it right now, but I read it because it was written by a author named Robin Wasserman, and I saw her name, and I know that she's a friend of Maureen Johnson's, and I love Maureen Johnson, so I found out they were friends because they're on Twitter and they talk to each other all the time, so I was like, oh, well, that's one of Maureen's friends, so I ought to read her books. I had no idea what the book was about. I just bought it because it was at the used bookstore for cheap. And I knew nothing about Robin Wasserman. I knew nothing except that she was friends with Maureen Johnson. I was like, okay, well, that's like part of the club, so I got to read her stuff. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things. So, your turn. What do you need to read?
Well, there's so much. Oh, probably the Saga of Recluse by Ellie Modesitt. This is another one of those, if you read science fiction and fantasy type stuff, you should probably read this at some point.
Mm.
And it's another one of those that I've been collecting for a long time, but I don't have the whole series yet. But I have, I know I have like at least the first 5. And these are fairly hefty books. They're all like not quite the size of Rhapsody, but close. And I've been meaning to read them, and I've had people tell me that they're so, so, so good, but I just haven't gotten around. Of course, I've kind of fell out of the mindset for epic fantasy.
Yeah, that can happen.
It's not that I don't like it anymore. It's just I haven't been in the mood for it. And I had hoped that when I read Rhapsody, it would kind of make me want to start reading more stuff like that.
Right.
And it kind of did, but not enough to actually motivate me to pick any of it up. But then again, I would also like to finish the Symphony of Ages, which I'm reading the 3rd book, I believe. Destiny, yeah. Maybe once I finish that, I will pick up. But when you're reading a book that's that big, it's kind of daunting to pick up another series that has 12 books that size in it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It's just like, I want to read it, but So,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get around to it or not. But they've been on my shelf for a really long time, and I should probably read them at some point. And the biggest reason I want to read this stuff is I want to know if I like it, if I want to keep it, if I need to put it in a box and take it to the used bookstore of Awesome next time I go. Because if I don't like it, then it doesn't need to be taking up room on my shelf.
Right.
You know, it needs to be taken up there so that somebody that will love it can get it, and I can get something that I will love.
Right.
So I really need to work on reading this stuff. I really do. At some point, I will get around to it. I promise.
I know. No, I do. You're gonna eventually.
Eventually. It may be 5 years from now, but eventually.
Someday. All right. Well, the next one that I'm going to talk about, I got a recommendation for it. I don't remember who it was from, but I know that it was connected to one of the Top 10 Tuesday posts over at the Broken the Bookish. And I think the subject was something to do, it was probably one of their wild cards, because I don't think this was actually a subject that they had proposed, but they sometimes have one where you can make up your own, so somebody did. And it was about fairy tale retellings or other classic story retellings. And I kind of have a soft spot for those. And she was talking about all of these different stories that were kind of either fairy tales or classic stories that were kind of turned on their head, sort of. And so I just started opening up my Goodreads and popping all of these books in my to-read list on Goodreads. And so I was over at my used bookstore, and I came across one of them, and so I got it. And it's called Scarlet by A.C. Gaughén, I think is how you pronounce the last name. Gaughen. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but
we'll go with that.
We'll go with Gaughén. I think that's it. And this is a retelling of Robin Hood, which I'm a big fan of Robin Hood. The Malorian Tavern read Hood by Stephen Lawhead because I requested it because I like Robin Hood, and that was another retelling of Robin Hood. But this one actually follows Will Scarlet, but in this case, Will Scarlet is actually a girl in disguise as a boy. So this also sounds like it could be a really good kick-ass heroine, too, if it's done well. And there's a reason why she's in hiding, I guess because she's about to get arrested or somebody's, like, hunting for her or something. And there's only a couple of people within the Merry Men who actually know that she's a girl. The rest of them think that she's a young boy. And so, I don't know, I just thought that premise sounded kind of interesting.
It does. I mean,
and it's something it could, but see, here's the thing. This is something I think that could go either really, really good or really, really dumb.
Yeah.
So that was part of when I first heard about it. I have to see which way it goes, because it could go either way very easily. But at the same time, it was on a couple different people's lists of various lists. So that makes me think that they probably did a good job, I would guess.
Well, you know, it's like anything. Some people will like it, some people won't. It's all relative.
This is true.
I mean, you know, some of the worst books I've ever read are some people's favorites, and they're pretty militant about it.
Yeah, that is very true.
I mean, we'll there is no, I don't, in all of fantasy anyway, I don't think there is any series that has quite as strong a line between the haters and the ones who love it as Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. So, you know, it you can never tell. Some people love it, some people hate it.
Yeah, I know you're in the, as far as that book is, you're in the hate it camp.
Oh, God. Yeah. See, I'm glad I got rid of those books, otherwise those would still be on my shelf. And I would be discussing why I needed to read them. But you know what? After book 4, I decided I was never going to finish them, so I got rid of them. Well, I've got so many. I mean, honorable mentions here, I have to go to the Dune books by Frank Herbert. They've been on my shelf for years. I
Oh,
have a
those are
series.
good. Those are really good.
I've seen one of the movies. I don't remember which version of it I've seen. I know I saw one of them. So I know I want to read them. And then I have,
Well, those are of the list where if you are a science fiction or fantasy fan, you have to read them just because of their place in
yeah,
the history of science fiction and fantasy.
yeah. And let's hope that I enjoy them more than my last foray into science fiction, which was, the Timothy Zahn book, Night Train to Rigel,
Oh yeah,
which I was not a huge fan of.
I wasn't really either.
Giant militant chipmunks. I have to draw a line somewhere.
I liked them,
I did too, but still, we look. You give me a fantasy novel with giant chipmunks, and I'm cool with that.
but not in a sci-fi book, huh?
But not aliens that look like giant militant chipmunks. I draw a line there. I mean, granted, my line is pretty off from where most people's would be, but I have to draw a line. And I have a series about it's the Diaries of the Family Dracul, I think is the name of the series, by Jean Calogridis. It's a trilogy. There's 3 books. It's about Dracula. And I've had those for years and never gotten around to reading them. I'm trying to mentally picture my bookshelf and what's on it. There's so many of the Dragonlance books that I've never read that I need to, that I own. Why, I mean, I need to read. I have, Mercedes Lackey has a series called The Elemental Masters that I've never read any of that I need to read.
It's a Mercedes Lackey book you haven't read?
And she's got a few I haven't read. Now, all of her Valdemar stuff, Velgar set on the world of Velgar, I've read all of that. And I've read most of the 500 Kingdoms, which, we did the Fairy Godmother.
Yeah.
On the Tavern, which, was another one of those fairy tales turned on their ears type things.
Yeah, and see, that's on my list of series that I need to finish, but I haven't. So.
Well, the good news is you don't have to go back and reread any books to finish that one.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that before, and that's very helpful.
Yeah. But she has a series called The Elemental Masters, and I've never read those. I own most of them, but I haven't read them. And then she's got a series called Dragon Jousters, which it's dragons. Come on now. And it's like I read the first one and never got around to reading the other 3. I own them all in hardback, but I haven't read them all. So, I mean, there's so much on my shelf that I need to read because I need to be able to decide, hey, I might read this again one day, so I'm going to keep it. Or, no, I'll probably never read this again, so I need to take it to McKay and get something that I will read. I'm horrible at this. I buy so much new stuff, and then I run out of places to put it, and then I don't read it. Oh, the Maximum Ride books by James Patterson. I've got all but like the last 2 or 3 of those. I read the first one and never finished them. I mean, it's inexplicable because I really liked the first book. It was really good. And they're young adults, so they take me all of like a day to read. I could have all of the ones I own read in like a week and a half.
Right.
But I haven't read them. I don't know why. I guess this year, I just haven't been in a reading mood.
Well, that happens. That was actually me last year, and the only reason that I met my Goodreads goal for last year was because I got lucky.
I read a lot last year, and I think I may have kind of burnt myself out.
Yeah, that happens.
And I'm hoping that maybe since I finished Corey Taylor's book, that maybe I'll be able to get back into my reading. Because, like I said, this is May, and I've read hardly anything. And there's a lot of stuff come out that I really want to read, which kind of defeats the purpose of my trying to read stuff that's on my shelf that I haven't read. But I want to read the Dan Brown book. There's new J.D. Robb books coming out that I want to read. There's new Chicagoland Vampires books coming out. There's a Shifter short story novella thing coming out by Chloe Neal that I really want to read. And I will read all that stuff when I get it. I'm just sucking miserably at this read stuff that I already own thing. But I have not went to the library. If I had gone to the library, it would be even worse.
That's true.
Though there are things I need to go to the library and get, like when I finally get around to reading Fire, I'm going to have to go get Bitter Blue.
Right.
So, I don't know. I am failing miserably this year. But it's okay. Because hopefully if I don't do anything this year, there's always next year.
Of course. The books aren't going anywhere.
No. Because, like you said last week, don't set the house on fire.
No, that's a bad idea.
I'm going to try to avoid that because I have a lot of money tied up in books and movies, and I really don't want to have to try to rescue them all.
Okay, so let's see. The next one I'm going to talk about is another one that I picked up at the used bookstore because I like the author, and that is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. And I know nothing about this book. I just saw it. It was cheap. It was by Neil Gaiman, so I picked it up. And just reading the description on the back, somebody's called it a dark contemporary Alice in Wonderland.
See, that's like my kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And
I love Wonderland.
It has something to do, it takes place in London, and somebody, I'm reading the back here, somebody gets pulled into a world he never dreamed existed, a dark subculture flourishing in an abandoned subway stations below the city. So, that sounds cool. And so I don't know, it just was something that caught my eye, and like I said, it's Neil Gaiman, and I like him. So, why not?
Yeah.
And although his stuff, I've read 3 books by him, if you count Good Omens, which he wrote with Terry Pratchett.
I've read them.
Now that's a good book. And he's got some weird stuff going on in his head. Actually, no, I guess I've read 4 if you count a couple of issues of Sandman that I've read, which is a graphic novel. And I don't usually read graphic novels, not that I have anything against them, it's just not something that I'm immediately drawn to. But there was a website that I follow that was kind of reading them or talking about them, so I picked up the first 2 volumes, and that's really, really dark and twisted, like too much for me. So that went in the box to go to the used bookstore, just because I got through the first and I'm like, okay, that was really weird and disturbing, but let's keep going, shall we? And then we got to the second one. I was like, I know there's people who like this kind of stuff, and namaste, good for you, but I don't think I can hang with it.
So I'm going to take it to the used bookstore so those people can have them.
Yeah, and that's, have a good time, enjoy, but it was one of those that when I started it, I knew, this is going to sound funny, but I knew that I would have to read it sometime early in the day because it was not something I wanted to read right before I went to bed.
Oh, I sympathize.
And not because of the type of thing where I can't put it down, I have to keep reading, but I really don't want to try and have any kind of dreams involving this storyline, characters, anything.
My dreams are weird enough.
Yeah, I don't need that kind of influence going right into my subconscious as I'm getting ready to go to sleep.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I've read some stuff like that before. And these are some that are on my shelves. I've read the first 4 of them, I think, and I have 7 or 8 of them, I think. But it's the Special Agent Pendergast series by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. And the first one, Relic, was actually made into a movie in the early 90s. Granted, they cut Agent Pendergast out of it, and it only bears a passing resemblance to the book, but I started reading them, and these are some of those that are way out on the far side of weird. I mean, the plot of Relic was that there was this creature living in the basement of some museum in New York, like the big museum.
Okay.
And it came out, and it was killing people and eating their hypothalamuses. And the way this creature came into being was eating some kind of plant on this island. It was used to be a human being, and it was turned into this creature. And it was like a relic left over from, way back in the annals of evolution or whatever. And it was really weird.
Sounds
and the rest of the series was equally as weird, because book 2 was Reliquary. I don't remember that much about that one. And then it was the Cabinet of Curiosities, which a Cabinet of Curiosities was kind of like a museum, but it was... Have you ever seen the TV show Oddities?
No.
Okay, well, they run this store, and they sell weird stuff, like gallstones and pickled tracheas, and, just really weird stuff.
Why would people want to buy that?
There are people out there who collect that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't ask, but there are people out there who collect some really strange things, and a Cabinet of Curiosities is basically a collection of things like that. You'll have, like, a stuffed dead bird and a trachea in a jar, and, just really bizarre things. And that was kind of the part of the central plot of that book, obviously, since the title was The Cabinet of Curiosities. And then there was Still Life with Crows. Somebody was murdered out in the middle of a field, and they killed a bunch of crows and set them up around like they were watching. They're just really weird and out there books. They're good, but I can only handle just small doses of that.
Right.
Because, that's just way, way out in left field. But I have, like I said, I think I have 7 or 8 of the books in that series, and I've read the first 4. I don't think I'm going to go back and read the first 4 again, because it's really not a series that's tied together that closely. It's just more the adventures of this agent, and each one is a completely different story. So I'm probably not going to reread the first 4 if I ever do pick it up again. But I really should, because I'm probably never going to read them again, and I will probably put them in the box to take them to McKay. Because, wow, those were weird.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, it's like I can handle a certain level of weird. In fact, I like a certain level of weird. And if it's a little bit dark and twisted, I'm okay with that too. But there is a line. And every once in a while something crosses that line, and you just have to take a step back and say, whoa, and I thought that I was a little bit dark inside. Whew, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at with these. It's like, I could read one of these a month, and that is my dose of sick and twisted. Because, wow. And it's not so much, I love, like, cop procedural type stuff, and Pendergast is an FBI agent, but it's kind of like Bones meets Supernatural, except a whole lot more weird.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just really out there. So I'm sure I'll finish it eventually, but it's just, I got enough out of the first 4 books. I'm just like, I need a breather, because that was weird. Wow, yeah. There's a line, and it didn't really cross it, but it rubbed up against it an awful lot. It got awful cozy with that line. And it's weird because I cannot watch horror movies, but I can read books like that have very graphic descriptions of these murders and these crime scenes and stuff, and it doesn't really bother me.
I'm kind of the same way. I really, really hate watching anything to the point where even if it's on a television show, like if it's a television show that's later in the evening and sometimes they're a little bit more graphic in some ways, I will have to avert my eyes. I really can't take anything that's really like bloody, gory, that sort of stuff. Yeah. But see, I can read it all day long.
That's the good thing about Supernatural is it is kind of a horror TV show, but most of the really gnarly stuff takes place off screen.
Right.
I've never had a problem watching it. I mean, I watch half a season in a day, and I have really bizarre dreams about looking for my socks in the trunk of the Impala, but, whatever. I'm a strange individual, what can I say?
Well, we knew that.
But yeah, that's another one of those series that I've got. And if nothing else, if I do end up reading those and keeping them, I've got some of them in hardback, and I would like to, trade those for paperbacks. That's a discussion we need to have, the merits of paperback versus hardback.
Oh. Yeah, I'm of two different minds of that one, to be honest. All right, the last book I think I'm going to talk about is... I've read the first book of this series, and I really, really liked it. Speaking of things that are kind of dark and twisted, but haven't quite crossed the line. And that's the Modern Fairy Tales series by Holly Black. And I've read book 1, which is called Tithe. And I have book 2, which is called Valiant. And I haven't read it yet.
Holly has those, or had those, or read those, or something.
Yeah, and the thing is that from what I can tell, Valiant is not a continuation of what happened in Tithe. So they kind of stand alone, but the mythology is similar.
Yeah.
And, hey, it takes place in New York City, so I should like it, right?
I wonder if they run into any shadow hunters.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like the main character is a 17-year-old girl who's running away, and she takes up with a gang of squatters who are living in the subway. Oh, it's another group of people living in the subway. Okay. That must be a theme. Apparently that's something I want to read about. Who knew? I have a secret desire to want to live
in the subway.
Well, I do want to live in New York someday, and you know how expensive it is, so I'll just live in the subway.
There you go. Just want the subway.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I really want to read it. I really do. Because and the thing is, it took me a long time to read Tithe, too. And I first read it, I checked it out at the library, and it took me, it sat there, I had to renew it a couple times, and then finally I read it. I was like, what was my problem? Because this is a really good book. And then I finally bought a copy and bought Valiant, and before I realized that they're not really connected, I told myself I really need to reread Tithe so I can read Valiant. But then it took me a long time to actually do that, and then afterwards I realized I didn't have to. But that's okay.
So at least now you know, so that when you do decide to pick it up, you don't have to be like, okay, well, I need to reread this other one first.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't end up reading it again.
Yeah. See, the thing that's weird is that Tithe is the first book, and it's not connected to book 2. But then book 3 is called Ironside, and it's connected to book 1. But it doesn't seem to be connected to book 2. So it's weird. And see, even just that should be enough to make me want to read it, to figure out how it works, because now I'm thinking that book 2 has to fit in there somewhere, because otherwise it's just a kind of a weird structure. But according to just what I'm reading on the back of the book or the blurb on Goodreads, it doesn't sound the same. So I'm really confused. And that should be enough to trigger me to read it, but it hasn't so far.
You will eventually.
Oh, I know.
All of my things.
I know, and it's also on the list of series I need to finish, so I have double the reason to want to do it.
Yeah. So. That's one of those that I'll get around to reading someday.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I can steal those from Holly, so I don't have to buy those and let those acclimate to their surroundings before I can read them. I can borrow them and then return them. Of course, I'm pretty sure my copy of Discovery of Witches has gotten used to living at Holly's instead of here, so because she had it for like a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are all the books that I wanted to talk about. Are there any more that you wanted to
Oh, there are so many that I could, but I think I'm going to stop there.
We don't want the podcast episode to be 3 hours long.
No. People would probably tune out if we did that.
Yeah, probably. Oh, well. Well, so obviously we need to get going on reading anyway, so we need to get off the show.
Yeah.
So just another reminder, next week we are talking about A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So pick it up, go read it, and join us next week when we are doing our discussion. And
I hope that will be fun.
I think so. There's a lot of things I want to talk about just so far, and I'm probably a little over halfway done.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we need to discuss. Yeah. So that's next week, and remember, we will not be here Memorial Day weekend. So go, do something fun for the holiday. I don't know what, but find something fun to do, and then come back and see us the next week, which we don't know what we're talking about the week after that, but we'll find something fun.
Yeah, hopefully we'll figure that out between now and then. Or, we could just do like we did tonight and be like, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, that's been our general MO lately. So, but you know what? Everybody can help us with that if they would like to, because if there is anything that you would like us to talk about, if you have any kind of topics, or if you have any books that you really want to hear our take on, let us know. You can contact us a couple ways. You can email us at bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter at bibanonpodcast, so you can send us any feedback, topic suggestions, book recommendations, comments, funny stuff, anything. You can send it there. You can also find us on our official website. You can leave us comments, you can leave questions, you can leave anything you want there, and that's www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com. And between now and the next episode coming out, on May 15th, the discussion thread for A Discovery of Witches will be up at the Malorian Tavern. So you can find that there starting the 15th, and that is at www.maltavern.com.
Yep.
So
that should do it for us tonight.
I think so. And we will see everybody next week for A Discovery of Witches. Yeah, that should be fun.
Yes.
So fun. I'm excited too. It's an interesting book, and I think we're going to have fun talking about it. So thanks for listening, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.